Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Taylor, and in today's video, we're gonna tackle that turbo pedestal oil leak on the dirt cheap 7.3 Powerstroke. So if you guys are new to the channel, this is my 1996 Ford F-250 with the 7.3 Powerstroke diesel engine. I've been calling this project the dirt cheap 7.3 Powerstroke because I picked it up for just $3,750 a few weeks ago, and I've uploaded a lot of videos of getting this thing looking a lot better aesthetically, both inside and outside, but today we're finally moving on to tackling some of the gremlins in the engine compartment. Now, as you guys can see, I've already gotten started doing some of the tear down to get to this turbo pedestal. And unfortunately about this is the first generation 7.3 Powerstroke from 94.5 to 97, and it has a square exhaust flange from the up pipes. And those are very difficult to access the bottom two nuts. Now on the later Powerstrokes, 98 and up, they had a circular exhaust housing with a V-band clamp similar to the downpipe, and that makes it a lot easier to get off. So right now we're gonna struggle with getting that off, and then I'll catch up with you after I have successfully removed the turbo. Well guys, this job is absolutely terrible. I just got the turbo out, but I have to say this is probably one of the more difficult jobs I've ever done. And I know people say the 6.4 Powerstroke is tough to work on. This 7.3 with this square exhaust flange was, I felt, near impossible to get out at some time. But here you go, this is the turbo. The front two pedestal bolts go right here. Those are the most accessible bolts in this whole entire endeavor here. The next two were up here. Those are 13 mil bolts. And then down here, get the light on so you can see, there's a bolt hole there and a bolt hole there where studs actually come through. And those studs had nuts on them, as you can see right there. And those were incredibly difficult to get apart, and I made several trips to different stores to try to find the right tools to remove it. Now, from every video and every paragraph on the forums that I've seen, everybody tells you to remove this exhaust back pressure valve, and I removed the first two bolts. Those were easy to get out. Had to heat them up a little bit with the propane torch. But then I came down here to the bottom, and it took me about 30 minutes to realize that this was completely stripped out. The head of this bolt is just completely circular at this point. So somebody has tried to remove this before and failed. And so it made it very much more difficult to get this removed with this here, because I couldn't really access that hole very easily up there where that stud came through. But I'll show you what I use now to conquer this task. So far today, I've made 2 trips to Harbor Freight. I went to Napa Auto Parts, Ace Hardware, Lowe's, and Home Depot, and struck out at almost every place. I was trying to find these little crowfoot socket deals that I saw in another YouTube video and just couldn't find the right things. And I did buy some universal sockets, but those did not seem to work for me given the angle of how sharp this is right here for that hole. The bolt, the nut comes out, and then you've got such an aggressive angle that the head of the universal socket just kept wanting to pop off of there. So this is what I use to get going. As you can see here, this is a stubby socket, or not stubby socket, but a stubby box wrench with a little ratcheting box at the end there. And this was very helpful because I was able to actually remove the passenger side bolt like so, and was able to just ratchet that right on out of there. On this side, it was a little more difficult because this fat wrench was hitting the side of this exhaust housing. So what I actually ended up using was a tool that I had here all along. If I can find it. This is a 15 mil, just a regular box wrench, but it has a bend at the end. This bend right here, sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, but this bracket was right in here. That's a 10 mil nut or bolt on top. I removed this bracket. I'm not even sure what that goes to, but that allowed me the clearance to get this wrench in here on that nut. And as you can see, it's very close, but I was able to break that loose and get the whole thing pulled out of there. So very, very difficult job. I can't believe it gave me this much trouble, but it is what it is. So let's get down to actually fixing what needs to be fixed, and then we'll go ahead and reinstall this. Now, one more thing I do want to mention about these stubby extensions here that basically you need something very short like this because there's just no clearance for a normal sized wrench between both the firewall and the up pipe. This up pipe is very rigid and I could barely move it out of the way, but this kind of gives you a little better idea of what I was working with here. This stubby wrench was really the perfect thing for getting this passenger side bolt off. And as you can see down here, we just have a swimming pool of oil. Look at this wrench. It's almost as deep as that entire wrench in this whole valley here. So there's no doubt our oil leak was coming from here. So right now I'm gonna pick these two O-rings out of here, install the new ones, clean this surface, and then we'll reverse the process of what I've just talked about here. And guys, I do apologize. This is a very hands-on project and I really wasn't able to hold the camera throughout the whole process of pulling it out, but hopefully some of those explanations will help you in your turbo removal endeavors. But right now I'm gonna put these O-rings on and we'll go ahead and install the turbo back on. And hopefully now that I have an idea of what I'm doing, the installation will go much quicker. Well guys, as I take a closer look at the turbo pedestal, I realize that this back pressure valve actuator appears to have been leaking as well. And unfortunately a rebuild kit, you know, they're pretty expensive. I found one online for 145 bucks. The Ford dealership actually wanted $216 just to rebuild the contents of this little actuator. So I'm gonna gut this thing apart and I'll show you what I have come up with to delete this, and then I'll go ahead and pull this flap out of the exhaust back pressure valve here. So I pulled this actuator plunger and spring out along with that little rod, and you can see inside the bore here there's a bunch of debris and contaminants at the back of the cylinder there, indicating that it's been leaking. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna maintain this original backing piece that goes right here with the snap ring. I'll reinstall that with some RTV, but I've gotten a bolt, I've gotten two O-rings, a bolt, a lock nut, or a nylock nut, and two washers. And what I'm gonna do is basically just put that through the hole at the end and tighten it. The two washers are gonna go over these O-rings, and that'll create a seal that'll hopefully keep this thing from leaking in the future. All right guys, you can get a little bit of a better sense of what I'm talking about now. I put the bolt through there, I put a rubber little washer in there with a hard washer as well, and did the same on the outside to seal it together. Now I'm gonna cut the excess threads off of here just so it stays out of the way, and get the back plug put back on. All right, I got the inside little flapper out from the back pressure valve. I put a freeze plug in where that rod came through with the arm. Pedestal's back on with two new O-rings. Ground down the little excess there, and then up here I've got a new exhaust collector gasket from the back of the turbo to the up pipe flange, and then I put the new O-rings in there, coated them with a little sealant, RTV, just to make sure they stick in there while I'm fumbling with this turbo. So now I'm gonna throw this thing back in. So to give you a better visual of what I was talking about before, you can see here I've got this boxed wrench with the angle in it, and when you remove that bracket that mounts down in here, you can get this wrench on there, and it's bent just enough past the back of the compressor housing, and you can crank down on it. Now I've already tightened all these bolts, but I just wanted to show you that. So a regular box end wrench will work here if it's got a bend in it, and then I'll go ahead and fasten that bracket back in with the 10 mil. And then over here we have the little stubby ratcheting box end wrench, and I can get it back here onto the head of that, and as you can see, it clears the firewall and the downpipe, and you can get all the leverage you need off of that to get these bolts loose. All right guys, so now that I showed you how to get to those bolts, you have a pretty good sense of how to get this thing out of there. Very difficult job again, but I'm gonna change this O-ring in here that goes to the inlet pipes to those intake plenums. I'll put the intake boot on, and then I have to put the V-band clamp back on over for the downpipe, and we should be pretty much wrapped up. All right, all of the clamps are tightened up. We've got the inlet pipe hooked up, everything's tight, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull this thing outside and check for leaks, and then we'll put our Powerstroke cover back on when we're sure that everything is leak-free. Well, I just fired it up and I can't see any leaks. Show you guys in here. Down there, everything looks nice and clean. I don't see anything dripping down. So I think that did it. fixed our oil leak. We deleted that EBPV valve. So this thing should be good to go. Well, that's a job that I never ever want to do again. Well guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. I didn't really enjoy it, honestly. It was a lot of work and probably my least favorite project in regard to fixing up the dirt cheap 7.3 Powerstroke, but it needed to be done to fix that oil leak. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up for me and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more automotive content like you saw here today. And truthfully, I'm a little bit diesel trucked out right now, so here's a hint as to what we'll be working on next here on the channel. So tune back in the next couple of days and we'll get rolling on the 70 El Camino. I look forward to seeing you guys next video.